Hello and welcome to another episode of Allo and Ace podcast. I am the allosexual Skylar.
And I'm the asexual Jessi.
Jessi, before I ask you how you're doing,
What?
Let's just remind everybody that this is a sexual podcast.
Yeah, we talk about sexual things.
Because it's a podcast about asexuality, which oftentimes sex comes up.
Yep, and sexual things. Things of sexual nature.
We also may, I don't know that we have, but we may discuss SA and self-harm type stuff, possibly.
Other sensitive materials.
So if while you're listening, you feel a bit uneasy, we ask you to just pause and
do what you need to do.
Yeah. Also, we are not professionals.
No, we're not.
We just talk about our relationship, our life experience, and we go from there.
And we just so happen to talk about it with pretty much full transparency.
Full transparency,
which can be a lot, but we're here for it.
And Jessi is in therapy, so she gets the help that she needs when she needs help.
I do. And I had therapy today like I usually do on Mondays.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can find us on most socials through Allo and Ace or Allo and Ace Podcast. And you can also email us if you want to at alloandacepodcast@gmail.com. If this podcast is benefiting you and you want to make a donation, if you go to alloandace.com, we do have a Buy Me a Coffee link, and you can do that if you so choose.
Yeah, it's very appreciated. And you know what? If you aren't able to do that, that's all right too.
And if you want to leave a message and just say thanks for what you're doing, we appreciate those as well. Yeah,
do you want to give the phone number?
Sure. If you want to send us a text message or call us, you can do so at area code in the US 385-645-3651. We will not answer the phone, but you can leave a message.
And you do get to hear our cheesy voice message.
Sure, yeah.
So that's wonderful. Please call. Please leave a message. Please send a message over any platform that you'd like. We'd love to hear from you.
So Jessi.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I feel like I have the biggest mixed bag of emotions because the last week has been really interesting. Don't you think?
I would say yes.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful.
That's an interesting...
Oh, now who's using the word interesting? I feel hopeful. I don't know. We've had a lot of really, really good conversations this past week.
And this whole episode is based off of an asexual spark.
Yeah, I have a couple sparks to share this week, and this week's episode, it comes from one of those sparks. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one, I think. So we actually, now that I think about it, had 3 sparks.
3 sparks.
3 sparks. Wow. And they're all kind of hefty. I'm not going to lie. They're pretty rich. They're pretty impactful. And I hope that by us talking about them so transparently that someone can get something from it. They are important. So I wonder what kind of experiences others are having and who will get a message from talking about this stuff. Should we start with Friday?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, on Friday, Skylar and I were in the right atmosphere and in the right setting with the right situation to partake in a certain substance. We're not going to name the substance. I don't think that's necessary. We don't want to encourage anything necessarily. But
even if it's alcohol, even if it's, a plant, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. We don't want to encourage that. If you message us and you want to talk about it further, then we might talk about it a bit further in that situation. But we're going to keep it a bit vague in this for this. Anyway, we have talked about this specific substance in the past. And we've talked about how it was a pretty enjoyable experience and it removes all of the walls that you might have and you're just really yourself. And all of your deep loving emotions, empathetic emotions come through on this substance. And I have been really scared to have this experience again, partly because in the past, this experience had a lot of sexual activity while on it. And I was so scared to replace these memories with an aversion memory because I had no idea how I would react. So I pushed it aside and pushed it aside and pushed it aside. And finally, just within the last 5-6 days, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm ready to do this. So we got within the right atmosphere and setting that was safe, and we partook of this substance. And it went amazingly. And I was shocked. I was so over the moon, thrilled with it. And this experience felt like nothing like we felt before. It felt so, well, all of the other experiences felt real. This one felt like extra real because I didn't have anything telling me who I should be, how I should react, how I should be in any way. I didn't even have myself telling me how to do these things. And so it was amazing. And there was plenty of activity that was intimate that would normally be seen and felt as very sexual, but it didn't feel that way. It felt just like pure connection.
And that's how it had been, or how you had described it before, even, is that it was just very connecting, and it never felt like sex because it just felt like such a connection.
Right. But
even though logically and literally it is sex.
Yes. But I had never known myself to this degree while on it. So I just didn't know what to expect. So it went amazing. But here's the thing, everybody. There's always a come down when you partake in substances. There just is.
Whether it's alcohol or anything.
Yep.
You get sober.
Yep.
The glasses get less foggy.
Yes.
Inhibitions get less inhibition-y.
Yeah. And in the past, I hadn't experienced an unpleasant come down. So I wasn't expecting that to happen here. But with this one, it wasn't very pleasant. And it wasn't very pleasant because I could literally feel the distinction starting to come back in of this feels sexual now. It doesn't feel like pure connection. It feels sexual and uncomfortable. And it's hard when you have just experienced this like pure joy of connection and not thinking about the sexual aspect at all. And then all of a sudden your brain starts to bring that back into the picture. You're like, oh, wait, that was so nice not to have it this way. But that is the way that it is. I don't regret having the experience. It taught me a lot, and it really showed me that I didn't have to be scared of it any longer. And now I know what to expect a bit more in the future if and when we choose to partake again, right?
Yeah.
Skylar, what was your experience with that?
I think it was just nice to have you fully know who you are, in as far as the persona wasn't there to begin with, so there was no acting upon the persona that was already previously there. Yeah. And I still took your lead. I didn't push anything. No. I made sure. And some people might say, well, didn't you guys take sex off the table? So why would you have sex?
We took sex off the table in regular circumstances. This is a special, extreme exception. And if it had gone poorly, totally would be off the table.
Yeah, it's off the table in a normal setting, normal manner in which Jessi is trying to talk herself into being okay to have sex.
Right.
As a gift, if you will.
Yes.
Or as a way for...
I really don't like saying gift.
Yeah. As a way of like providing me as her partner something.
Right.
Or trying to like test that boundary.
Yeah, there was consent the entire way through. And this certain substance isn't one where you're like, don't remember what you're doing. No, you remember everything. And that's another reason why it's great, because I would want to remember these things. So that was an interesting experience overall. That was definitely a spark situation. I learned a lot. One thing I want to say, and I feel kind of like I want to own this a bit. And I'm being vulnerable by doing this. The whole podcast is vulnerable. What am I talking about? I historically have really enjoyed taking subtly sexy photos, not only of myself, but of others. And it always has a story behind it. It's not sexual to me. Other people would describe it as subtly sexy, or other people would describe it as sexual, but I love the artistic value of it. There isn't a lot of nudity going on in it. It's thoughtful.
Well, and anything without context is taken for whatever the person wants to see it
Exactly. It's going to be perceived however someone wants to perceive it.
So a boudoir picture that someone just sees might say, oh, that's a nude picture, or that's a couple that is, doing a subtly nude photo shoot.
Right. But some of these, I don't even know if I would go as far as saying boudoir.
No, but I'm just saying,
right?
I'm not saying yours specifically. I'm saying that if someone without context just picks up a picture that someone took as a boudoir artistic nude photography,
I think I have a good example.
They might just see it as a naked picture.
Yeah, I think I have a good example of like a story and being impactful. And this is going to age me a tiny bit, I think. But as far as I can remember, Demi Moore took a picture when she was very pregnant that was completely nude, and she had her legs crossed in the front of her. Nothing was showing. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely breathtaking. I think that is typically perceived as a really artistic, beautiful picture, but some people might perceive it as quite sexual because it's a lot of skin. I feel like I perceive the pictures I take as artistic and beautiful in the same way that people could easily take that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since coming out as asexual, unfortunately, I had put these pictures or taking these kinds of pictures in a box of, that's so sexual, I don't want anything to do with it. And I had completely lost my feeling of it being artistic. And it was sad to me. And so this whole thing with this substance happened, and it really was empowering to kind of separate those two things again. And it felt amazing to have that separation. Not everything, I don't have to make everything sexual either. I can take back the power and put art back into it, and that's beautiful.
Well, and you're not responsible for anyone else's reaction or reception to it.
Right.
Which, not that you're like posting these on the internet and giving them away or whatever.
No.
But even in your own head, even if you were like taking a picture for me, there was still heaviness to it.
Yes. Yeah. So that's just an interesting thing that came from that as well. Now, the second spark I want to talk about is decently heavy. It's difficult. It's not the one that the show's about, this episode's about. The last one will be, of course. This experience happened yesterday morning, and it has to do with testing boundaries, so I'm giving a little bit of a warning shout out right there. Skylar and I were in bed. Let me paint the picture for you a bit. Skylar and I were in bed in the morning before we had gotten out of bed at all.
And it was actually essentially, I think you like woke me up because you were kind of tickling my inner thigh area. You weren't touching my...
I was?
Yeah, you weren't touching my thing, but you were to the right and down a bit and just
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I don't remember doing that. But Skylar had started doing his normal,
Yeah, so you woke me up, and we touch and cuddle every evening and pretty much every morning.
Yes, Skylar touches my body, and I'm almost all the way nude every single night and pretty much every morning. And this morning was no different, or yesterday morning was no different. And so he was lightly touching, my most inner thigh. Okay. And when he was crossing the road to get to the other inner thigh, there was a little bit of grazing that had happened in my pelvic area. And it wasn't intentional on his part. He wasn't trying to get anything from it. He wasn't trying to make me feel a certain way. But it did, and I thought, maybe I should take this a step further in a small way. And I sat there for 20 minutes and contemplated it in my head, which probably should have been my first red flag sign.
Anytime you have to think about anything for 20 minutes.
Well, yeah, if I have to sit there and mull it over, it's probably not a good idea. But I ignored that prompting of myself. So take note, guys. And so I decided after about 20 minutes that I was going to try something. And that something was getting a vibrator and coming back to bed and choosing to engage with that vibrator and have Skylar be touching me on my chest. We'll just say that much. Well, something happened. Skylar misheard me. And when I was prepared to start doing what I was doing, Skylar had sat up and started doing things for himself. And I was like, what you doing? Like literally I was like, what's going on? And he had thought that I had said for him to do that.
Like a mutual masturbation.
Yes. And I hadn't. I had told him that he could engage with my chest in different ways.
Which in the previous persona life, that is something that we had done before many, many, many times.
Yeah. So when I said, what are you doing? And then we realized he misheard me, then he stopped doing what he was doing and he started engaging in the way that I had asked him to. And I continued on. And it was very quick because ironically, I am pretty easy to please. I'm just going to leave it at that. And so I got finished and then I made a joke like immediately after finishing, like, isn't that ironic? I'm so easy to please. Ha ha ha. I'm an asexual. And I then immediately burst into tears, like just sobbing. I immediately felt so uncomfortable with what I had just done. And it felt so unnatural. And I was just, it sent me into a really sad cycle of thoughts where I thought, oh my gosh, like this is such a little thing. Are you kidding me? I thought we were going to be okay. And it wasn't okay. And I think that that's why it hurt more because yet again, I thought this should be fine. And then it was really not fine. And I want to make it very clear. It's not that I feel like dirty afterwards. I feel like if I felt like it was dirty afterwards, that would point at some kind of religious trauma behind there or something. That's not the case. I felt just completely unlike myself, unnatural to who I am. Almost like I betrayed myself. Why did you even do this? You don't want to do this. Why did we do this? So it was rough. And it took me some time to reset yesterday. You noticed that, right?
Yeah.
Like I sat here and laid in bed after cleaning myself up and getting myself together a bit and just laid here in thought. And I was trying really hard to just accept the feelings that I was having around it. And it was a lot. I want to know what your experience and perception of all of that was. Skylar, like what was running through your head having this happen?
Well, it was a little different than, the sex aspect and having you break down in the middle of me being so involved.
Yeah.
I figured that this was just a boundary that you yourself was wanting to, you were wanting your own clarity or your own test or, a baby step or...
I thought it was a baby step. I was like, there's no P&V going on here. It should be fine.
So it wasn't something where I felt bad or I was upset that there was yet another thing that you tried that you couldn't do. In all these situations, I just want you to be okay and feel okay and know that I love you and, I'm here to be here for when you are looking to explore something, whether it goes good or not. And obviously, the whole experience that we had Friday was a big one that, like you said, could have gone really poorly, but it didn't. And so, I always just want to make sure that you feel loved and safe and not judged, or not like I feel like there's something wrong with you or anything like that.
Yeah, something that came up was the fact that I've been having this feeling when this kind of thing happens to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a tough one.
And I'm always like, what are you apologizing for? You don't have any reason to say sorry for anything.
Yep. And recently it's like, I'm sorry. And then the feeling after that is he has to deal with me. And I know that's not good. I don't like having that thought. It's very painful to have that thought. So I'm trying to work on getting through that. I like to talk about these things, even though they can feel quite graphic and very transparent and very vulnerable, because we've talked about boundaries.
Yep.
And it's important to find those lines in a safe way. I think it's important to recognize your red lights or red flags so you don't go further when you shouldn't be. Don't ignore them.
Well, and we've also talked about the fact that the person, in this case, Jessi, she's the one that has to understand her own boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
But these boundaries aren't going to be created because I'm suggesting things or wanting to see if you want to try something. You yourself need to have a thought of, oh, maybe this will be something I want to try. And then you figure out your boundary with whatever that is.
Right. Unless your partner has said you can bring things up for us to try. Right.
So I have never even when it comes to pictures, I've mentioned that you hadn't taken any, but I didn't ask for any.
Yeah, but do you feel like that could put some pressure on if you're like, you haven't taken any pictures in a while?
Well, and I think, sure. And I don't even remember, did I say that? Or am I thinking I said it? Because I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know if I actually did. Talks. Yeah. I don't even know if I did. I think you may have brought it up in a sense of like, you haven't taken any pictures and I've agreed with you, but I haven't asked you to take any pictures either.
Yeah.
So I don't think I actually ever said, you haven't taken any pictures. All the pictures I have are old or whatever, unless you've brought up something with it.
Right.
I feel like I'm pretty good at not crossing boundaries and not trying and not suggesting or doing anything in that regard.
Yeah. I want to say, for my experience, I do think it's important to try these things out if they feel like they can be tried out. But I think the biggest thing is accepting the fact that it can go not great and it can be painful to sit in if it doesn't go great. So it's like accepting the fact that it could go good or it could go bad, even though it's really hard. So preparing yourself for either outcome.
Well, and I think that you have lately been doing better at listening to your gut, but this was one of those times when you didn't. Yeah,
I didn't. So a big experience yesterday and a learning experience for sure. And there's even babyer steps that can be made. I talked about this with my therapist today. And one of the things that she had suggested was pretty much like if there was a little bit of grazing going on around the pelvic area, whether, it wasn't intentional by Skylar, but it was happening. And if I didn't mind it, then I just let it be and let it ride out in the way that it was instead of like taking it further. Because it's not like that happens. That doesn't usually happen, right?
No.
That was a new kind of thing to be happening.
Well, and I didn't even know that it happened.
Right. You weren't aware that you were kind of lightly, accidentally grazing as you were crossing the highway.
I had no idea.
Anyway. All right. So that's spark number 2. The third and final spark is what this episode is about, unless you have any other thoughts that you need to close with, Skylar.
No, and I'll say that this topic, or at least this third spark, it will probably lead to further episodes or further discussions. This is kind of like
It might lead to a full-blown fire.
Yeah, this is just like a prologue. Is that what it is? Like the beginning of a book?
Yeah.
So this is like a prologue to this topic, which
is a big one.
Is a bigger
It's a
topic.
big one. It's a really big one. So the theme of tonight's episode, the main theme, is ethical non-monogamy and ethical monogamy.
And we always say, or we've always talked, and most people talk about ethical non-monogamy and what that means, like swinging or open marriage or polyamory.
Yeah, there's a lot of communication that happens with what those things look like.
And books about it, like Ethical Slut. And, there's a lot of books, but everything, there's always this big focus about ethical non-monogamy, and especially people who come out as asexual. A lot of people discuss ethical non-monogamy or what that looks like in an asexual relationship.
I think it very naturally comes up, yes.
Yeah.
But you do not have people talking about ethical monogamy, because it almost seems like people just assume, of course, it's ethical. No, there are so many delicate lines that run through ethical non-monogamy and ethical monogamy. And there are lines that connect the two, and there are lines that don't connect the two. And this whole conversation was sparked because a few days ago, I don't even know, what day was it? Like Tuesday?
Probably.
It was during the week.
Yeah.
It was during the week last week. I had this guilt feeling come over me, which is not new. It's something that kind of lives under the surface, and sometimes it pokes its little head out.
Well, I think it was sparked by the discussion we had on either the last episode or the episode before that, where we talked about me taking sex off the table and me choosing celibacy
Maybe
in the relationship.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah. So the thing that surfaced was guilt over feeling like I'm forcing Skylar into celibacy, because his options are, you either get to be with me and be celibate, or you don't get to be with me.
So by me choosing, quote unquote, choosing celibacy, is it a non-choice because the choice is to either be celibate or to be divorced?
Yes, exactly. So we have this thing called the sunk cost fallacy. Skylar, do you want to explain that a bit?
So this is typically in business where, let's say that I wanted to start a snow cone shop.
Mm-hmm.
So I buy a snow cone trailer and I put $5,000 and I buy it from somebody, and I rent a pad for $200 a month, and nobody is going to it.
Okay.
So instead of cutting my loss and just being out $5,400, let's say I tried it for 2 months, I go, well, let's do advertising. So then I start putting $500 a month into advertising, and nobody comes.
Mm-hmm.
So then I go, well, actually, maybe if I
Maybe you need more flavors.
Maybe I need more flavors. Maybe I need 2 locations. So I spend another $5,000.
Oh boy, that's real. You're getting real deep now.
And now I need to hire people, because now I need to get a second job, but I still want to, I'm going to be profitable.
I really believe in this working out.
So instead of cutting your loss, the sunk cost fallacy is that you'll end up spending $100,000. You're willing to lose $100,000 instead of just losing $5,000 because you're so invested in this thing being successful. So we thought, well, how does that look like in a marriage?
Right.
So
and this is like a really great example of how it can look like.
So when Jessi and I got together, she wasn't asexual, right?
Yeah, or so we thought.
So we thought. And so we were both divorced. We now have combined household. We have 6 kids now. We have a mortgage.
The kids are best friends.
We have a minivan.
We have a minivan.
We have, other debt from fixing up the house. We have all these things. We have friends groups. We have all this stuff.
We have a goddamn podcast.
We have a podcast. So all of this stuff. And now, of course, I'm going to choose to be celibate.
Of course, because holy
Because
crap.
losing all of that is not worth it.
No, you're too far in. You're too established.
I'm too established. I'm willing to choose celibacy.
You're willing to double down, baby.
And stop having sex for the rest of my life because I've invested 6 years into this relationship. Our kids are best friends. Like, it'd be devastating, all this stuff.
Right. But how do you make an actual non-biased choice? How do you do that? Like, that's the thing.
There has to be
it's not possible.
So there has to be a choice that is done through free will.
Exactly. So this is where the conversation came in. I told Skylar, I said, I feel like by having that ultimatum that I've given you, celibacy pretty much, or divorce, I mean, not having me, whatever, is me with my hand closed so tight. Like Skylar's a butterfly in my hand and I have my hand closed. And I want all this control. And so he's not actually able to make a real choice. But what happens if I open my hand and I say, you know what? You can choose what physical wants you want to go out and pursue, and I will still be here. I will work around it. I will be accepting of your sexuality as you are to mine. And then he actually gets to make a real choice. So the question is, does he choose to do that? And it's terrifying.
And that's where the struggle was with Jessi is
it feels unethical to me.
Yeah, can you say that you are in an ethical monogamy relationship
if you're throwing ultimatums out like that? Where I am not a sexual person and you are, and this part of you is literally not fulfilled in the way that it normally, in quotations, would be if you were in any other regular, in quotations, relationship.
Now, and my question for her was, but why does sex matter? Like, are there other aspects of a relationship where that would be something that you would open your marriage for?
Well, I think that is actually what the thing that people open their marriage for. If there's a discrepancy in sex, it's either divorce or let's open our marriage, right?
So we look at how sexual society is, but if you broke it down, and this is why ethical non-monogamy typically is like something that both people actually think about and want to do. Mm-hmm. And that it isn't just done because there is this like lack of something. And so, well, because I'm not giving that to you, then I have to open up and you should go get that somewhere else. Because who decides like what that line is? If Jessi was, let's say that she was sex favorable or sex indifferent, and she said, well, I'm willing to do it once a month. Mm-hmm. Would I be able to say, well, that's not enough and I want to open my relationship? Or if it was once a week, but I want 3 times a week or 4 times a week.
Oh, gosh.
Is that something where I can say, well, you're once a week, that's really not enough for me, so I should be able to seek that outside of our marriage?
For some reason with sex, it is such an easy thing for people to go to as far as, well, the sex wasn't there. But then when you scale it back to something, say like cuddling, say I love
massages.
Cuddling. Massages.
I don't want to pay for it. I want my partner to give me a massage every night for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm willing to do that once a week.
Right.
Well, that's not enough. So should I be able to go get massages by another person
that I'm attracted to and like being around?
Yeah.
That loves to give massages. People will laugh at you. Like that seems ludicrous to even suggest that. Where is the line?
Like I really like Hallmark movies, and I want to cuddle and eat popcorn with someone from the opposite sex because you don't want to do that with me. So is that reasonable for me to go and do that?
And you know what the most interesting thing is, Skylar? Is that it could be reasonable because it all depends on what you create in your partnership or partnerships. That's for you to decide. This whole bullshit with society telling you what it has to look like, I'm sorry, but it has to go away because that's not how people operate. People actually need to start looking at what their relationship means to them and what the agreements that they can have are in an ethical way, of course.
Yeah, because if you don't talk about it, people have their perceived expectations of what it means to be monogamous in a relationship.
Yes, I would say that there are a lot of women that have way more assumptions towards their male spouse than males do to females, because I would guess that a female would assume that her husband isn't out commenting on sexy pics on Instagram of somebody. She assumes that he's just not going to do that. But the husband might not think that that's a big deal.
Because he might be like, well, I'm not talking to her.
Yeah, it's just a comment. It's just a stranger.
All I said was she looks good.
Yeah, and then you have 10 years down the line where he happens to comment on somebody that she actually knows and he doesn't know it. And then it comes to light that he's been commenting like that forever and it's never been a big deal. And then the wife's like, what? I feel like I can confidently say that people in monogamous relationships are not having actual conversations of what lines are what. There's just assumptions flying around everywhere.
And it's probably hard to nail down exactly every single one.
Yeah.
But I think a good way would probably be like, if you found out that your partner was doing the same thing, would that make you uncomfortable?
Mm-hmm.
But unless you guys talk about it, though, then it's only assumption. But should it be like, well, I don't think that you should sleep with your coworkers? Like, I don't think that has to be said. I think it's like, we aren't open. We don't have sex outside of, you and I.
Right. But when you get down to like the finer line things,
like flirting or complimenting someone even at work that's of the opposite sex, if that's who you're attracted to.
Yeah.
Like, is it okay to go on a work lunch thing if two people want to go out to eat and it's a man and a woman in this, heteronormative, society? Is that okay?
The lines are delicate, guys. The lines are really actually quite delicate. And what this points out to me is that so many more conversations need to be being had, and they're not comfortable ones. They're not.
Like, how uncomfortable would it make you? We have lots of friends that are men and women, and we're mutual friends with all of them.
Yep.
If I happened to be in a specific area of the city and I was like, oh, I'm over by so-and-so's house, maybe I should see if they want to go grab lunch real quick. Would that make you uncomfortable?
I don't know if it would make me uncomfortable, but it would make me jealous because I wish I was there with you having lunch, talking with them because I like them.
I think if I didn't tell you.
If you didn't tell me, that'd be really bad. That'd be like, why would you not tell me that? That's weird. See? And then there's another assumption. I'm assuming that you would definitely tell me if you were going to do that. And you might not think, I don't want to do anything with them. Why is it a big deal?
Yeah.
Right?
We're just friends and we're over at their house all the time. So why would it be a big deal? You don't care that I'm sitting next to them on the couch when we're there.
Isn't that so funny how easily it can switch? Like, if you told me that you were going to do that, I was like, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal actually. But then if you didn't tell me and then told me like the next day, I would seriously be WTFing so hardcore.
And then, but what if it became a weekly thing?
Oh.
So once was okay, but not once a week.
Once a week. Oof.
Like, there's a lot of
so many
things.
People could be so comfortable with that and not have it be a big deal at all. But others would be like, ouch, do you like have a crush on them? What's going on here?
Oh,
You
they're
know?
just fun to chat to and go to lunch and
But I'm fun to chat with. It. That's the other thing. Isn't it so interesting how easily we feel threatened?
yeah.
How easily we feel insecure. You could have the best relationship in the whole wide world. That's so solid. But finding out that your partner has been going to weekly luncheons with one of your close friends that is of this sex that they're attracted to.
Yeah.
Excuse-moi? Right?
So I guess the whole point of all of that ramble that we just did was that there's a lot of communication that has to happen in a relationship for there to fully understand what being ethical in your relationship looks like.
Yeah.
Does hearting or commenting on a quote unquote sexy Instagram photo, is that inappropriate or does it not matter?
That's for you and your partner to decide specifically.
But if you don't discuss it, then you'll never know.
Yeah. The other part here with the hand being closed and the hand being open with the butterfly in the hand is that like there's levels of control that feel comfortable, right? If my hand's closed, it's like, oh, I got all the power. This is all me. But the problem with that is if you came to me years down the road with my hand being closed like this and said, Jessi, I feel like I need to have some physical things met, then I would, oh my gosh, it would come out of nowhere. I would be like, whoa, 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 where did this come from? But if I chose to open my hand right now, while it's not even happening, this situation isn't even happening, and I know it's open, my hand's open, and you have your own free choice to do that, then I would have spent years at that point already wrapping my head around the fact that I've opened my hand and set you free to love me in the way that you love me and to come to me freely to say something. So it's really difficult. It's painful both ways.
Well, and I want to say this too. Like, so me having this established relationship, so do you. It's just as established on your side. But the reason why this even came up is because you were feeling guilty.
I was feeling guilty that I am forcing you to do something that is not natural to you.
And so how long can you feel guilty before you also are like, I can't take this anymore?
I know. And that's the big question. So it's like another part of this is we have so many rules and guidelines and whatnot that society tells us of how we have to do literally almost everything, down to how the toilet paper is even put on the roll.
Well, because of the patent, and that's how they designed it.
Okay, we're not going to get into it. But you know what I mean? How you eat, how you dress,
FDA,
how you
yeah.
everything has these rules and guidelines. And so it's so easy to get so caught up in all of that. But guess what, everybody? As long as you are being consensual and honest to goodness appropriate, you should really be designing the life that you naturally feel you should be having. And the people that are supposed to be in your life, with you living it that way, will come into your life, and the people that aren't, they will not. And so it feels like it could be so much better to just have this open hand and just be like, I want you to follow how you feel, even though that's so terrifying. And I'm going to be honest, if I did open my hand up with Skylar.
So what you're saying is the hand is not open.
My hand is not open right now. No, it's not. But it's this whole thought of what if it was? What does that look like? And it's an uncomfortable conversation, but it is so relevant.
I think people probably were thinking, oh, Jessi opened her hand and Skylar has the choice to go and do whatever he wants if it feels right.
Not yet, cowboy.
Well, don't say that to me. I'm not the one saying it.
No, I know, but here's the other honest to goodness thing. If I opened my hand up and Skylar came to me a couple years from now and he was in just a natural situation and happened to meet somebody very naturally, and there was this spark that happened. And he came to me and said he wanted to follow this feeling, then guess what? I would say I freaking knew that I was forcing you to be celibate. You wouldn't have made this choice freely if I had my hand closed. So I was right. It would feel like I was right to have opened my hand, because clearly you do feel like you would want to pursue something if it freely came up and naturally. You know? What are your thoughts?
I don't know.
He's like, I'm scared.
No, I don't. I don't really know. Like, I think if you're opening your hand, you're opening your hand.
Well, and the other interesting part of this is me opening my hand is also Skylar opening his. But the thing is Skylar's flavor of his hand opening with me is so different from the flavor of my hand opening with him.
I think the difference is, and this is what we talked about, I said, okay, so if you open your hand, are you expecting that I go and look for something? Are you yourself then going to look for your own flavor of whatever that is?
No, and we talked about this. If our hands were open in the way that we are describing, it wouldn't be this pursuing thing that we would be doing. It would be like if something naturally happened to come up. Say we were at a party with friends and their friends got invited, like different friends, and Skylar hit it off with someone and had amazing conversation, and this spark happened. He didn't pursue it. It just naturally happened. Well, then, if the hands are open, then we follow how we're feeling.
But you're saying that if that happened, you would say you freaking knew it.
Yes, for sure. But it's not even that I'm thinking of that in anger. I'm like, I totally was right. I'm so happy that I decided not to force celibacy on you.
So it wasn't a negative reaction.
No.
Okay.
It's almost smug. It's almost like I freaking knew.
I thought you were doing it in a negative way. Like, I knew it. I knew that you actually really wanted to go sleep
with
around.
other people.
And that,
No.
okay,
That's
that
not.
Makes sense. That's
No.
why my reaction, a couple minutes ago was like, I don't know what you're saying.
Almost like, this makes me feel a little bit freaked out to say this, but I almost feel like I would be like, there you go. Like I knew that there was some sunk cost fallacy happening here, right? But the flavors are different. My hand being open and Skylar's hand being open, Skylar going out and having something natural happen, like at a party that we happen to go to or something, that looks like him going home with somebody and being physical with them. And it's just a physical thing. My flavor of open is me having
a U-Haul.
A U-Haul. No, my flavor of open is like just having the most amazing little flirty, cheeky conversation with someone and not feeling bad about it, and maybe talking to them frequently. Maybe we hold hands. Maybe we watch a movie together and cuddle a bit. But it's like insanely different flavors.
But we also, so people are probably wondering, like, well, then what's the point of, why not just be ethical non-monogamy then?
I feel like if you are having that title, I feel like it's more of a pursuing thing.
I would say so.
Yeah. I would much rather say we're open to natural occurrences happening.
Not even that. Because we go to a lot of parties where if we were to stay just 1 hour later,
everyone would be naked.
The party would be a different vibe.
It'd be a different type of party.
So I don't even agree with that, really.
Yeah. Okay, then what does that even look like then? We would not be pursuing it in any way.
No, to me, it looks like ethical monogamy.
Ethical monogamy, but yet there is a crack in the door.
No, it's not even a crack in the door because it's
But
still...
how can it be ethical non-monogamy if you might possibly go home and sleep with somebody?
Well, typically monogamy, because for instance, if you and I were to have a threesome once, that does not make us now non-monogamous.
That's true because we're still like committed to each other.
So...
Oh, shit. Skylar?
So the way that I see it is it's still ethical monogamy in the sense that we aren't looking to change how we are right now, but we're not naive enough to know that there's not...
We're not naive enough to say this will never ever happen.
But it's not something where I'm like, nope, Jessi, I need to get this quote unquote need or want or desire met somewhere else because you're not providing that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for somebody else. So therefore I'm not monogamous because I'm looking to add another person or persons to have, whether it's still a relationship because it's a quote unquote sexual relationship. It doesn't mean that it's polyamory where I'm like in love with a person.
Yeah.
But you're still looking for relationships outside of your monogamous relationship.
I guess like the biggest thing is that we would never be looking for our dynamic to change at all. Like the way that we are together and living together and being the way we are, our dynamic. We're not looking for someone to come in and change our relationship dynamic between us.
And I'm not even looking to have any physical connection or relationship or anything with anyone outside of you.
Right.
And I don't plan on it either.
I know, but be honest, Skylar. Doesn't it feel a little bit better to have my hand open, like in a way of it feels a little bit less scary to come to me and tell me if something is up?
Well, what I would say is for me, and I'm a little different in this regard maybe than other partners that are allosexual, to me, I don't like that you are feeling guilty.
No.
So when we go back to episode 4 with relationship fears, my fear is that you feel super bad about it and you say, I can't do this anymore. So if you have no reason to feel guilty because you don't feel like you're making me choose celibacy, then you have nothing to be guilty about.
Right, but it's terrifying. It's terrifying. The freedom.
But again,
why is it so threatening?
But it's not a freedom. You're not giving me the freedom to go seek. We haven't had a discussion where we're like, we are having ethical non-monogamy.
Because you don't want to seek.
No.
But that's why I feel like it's important to say if there was a really, really big extreme situation that happened that felt like really right. That's all I know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Then I would want you to be able to come to me and say, I really feel strongly about this. Right?
Yeah. And whether or not we as a couple agree to pursue that or not isn't a guarantee either.
Yeah. This is such
like just because I'm like, hey, I wasn't expecting this. I ran into this person and for some reason, like, we just started talking and I don't know what it is, but I feel like I'm drawn to them. I'm drawn to them and I don't know why. You can still be like, okay, that doesn't mean it has to happen.
No, yes, but I feel like with my hand closed, that is a way scarier conversation than having my hand open and coming to terms with the fact that this could happen.
Yeah,
we're in a mixed orientation marriage. These things are very possible. And
that's why we say like this will lead to further episodes. This is just scratching the surface of what something looks like. You know, we're not opening our relationship. I'm not seeking anything. I still choose celibacy. I still choose Jessi. I don't want our dynamic to change at all. I don't want to spend time away from her. I don't want to have conversations with other women. I don't want to see even
Did you just say you don't want me to have conversations with other women?
I'm saying I don't want to have conversations with other women.
I heard that wrong.
I don't want, calm down.
Whatever.
I'm not looking to try to fulfill something that is viewed as missing.
Right. But isn't it amazing that we can sit here and have some of the most uncomfortable conversations, but pretty comfortably?
Yeah,
that's important.
A lot of people probably, I mean, we talked about this actually the last episode because we said, well, there's thousands of hours probably that throughout the 6 years, we talk all the time.
I mean, this is dinner table talk here.
This is regular conversation. We go on a walk.
Should I open my hand, Skylar?
Yeah. Like, to us, these are normal conversations that we have every day. And as we're having these conversations, we go, oh, that might be interesting to talk about on a podcast episode.
Right.
And so that's where this preliminary episode has come from, was Jessi feeling really bad and feeling guilty and feeling like her hand is closed fully, and that
that butterfly is about to die.
And that the only reason why I am choosing to be celibate is because she is sex averse, sex repulsed, and I don't have the option or opportunity to not choose that unless I want to be single.
Yeah. The other thing about that, though, too, that's interesting, Skylar, is that people in our lives would fully embrace and accept the fact that you would go get your physical stuff met elsewhere because I'm asexual. They would agree with it.
And that's how
there'd be no issue.
And that's how society often looks like. I mean, there's literally people, when they say, oh, my partner came out asexual, they just go, well, you should break up with them or you should go get your need met somewhere else.
Yep.
Like even the TikTok video that we did, someone was like, well, then just go shag someone else and be done with it. Who cares? Like,
and
why
be
are you
done with it?
Like, why are you talking about it?
Shag them, done.
Your wife doesn't want to have sex with you, so go have sex with someone that does. End of story. Who cares?
Like, that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that it's so widely accepted in this kind of dynamic, but outside of this dynamic, people are like, what? The scandal?
Yeah.
How weird. That's just weird.
That's just, society is so focused on sex, and it's interesting because you say like that's just how it is with the asexual relationships, but you know, the dead bedroom and all that, like I think the reason why that a lot of people look at the asexual relationships that way is because there's nothing that I can do to make you less adverse or repulsed to sex.
Yeah.
We can't go to a sex therapist. We can't like try different things to quote unquote spicing it up to make you enjoy it.
Make me enjoy it.
Your body enjoying it is not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that you are averse and repulsed. So you can't do anything about that.
Right. Yeah. So this is a big one, guys. This is a big topic.
Yeah.
I am so excited to get any messages about this that you guys have, like questions. It's going to probably spark even more conversation between Skylar and I.
Every day.
I do want to finish with a funny little story that happened just a couple days ago.
I don't even know what you're going to say.
He has no idea. So we had the pleasure of going and meeting some friends at a park.
Oh, I do know what you're going to say.
Yeah, you do know. You do know now. And they happened to have a family member come and say hi to them while we were at this park. And this family member seems super cool. I mean, they are cool. They don't seem super cool. I don't know them well, but they're just cool. Anyway, for some reason they had asked, oh, do you guys do podcasting?
Well, I think we were talking about it
Were we talking about different podcasts though?
Yeah, because I had talked about other podcasts and stuff that I had done in the past.
Yes. So this person had said, "Oh, do you guys do podcasting?" And me and Skylar just look at each other and we freeze. And we're just like silent. And then we start laughing. And then my friend that we met there at the park, she started laughing. And then I'm like, okay, wait, this is bad. Like, this looks really weird. Like, what are they podcast about? And then I said, yeah, we do. We have a podcast about being in a mixed orientation marriage because I'm asexual. And then in that moment, I was like, whoa, we're not prepared for that kind of question because it's like instant vulnerability.
Yeah, it's not that we're embarrassed by it. It's just people would probably be like, oh, we do a true crime podcast.
Or we talk about celebrities. I don't know.
Or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, but it is honestly just such an instant vulnerability. They instantly know that you have this interesting life.
Yeah.
And you're asexual and you don't know how people are going to take it. And so it was an interesting first experience, honestly. And he might listen to this episode because now he knows about the podcast. So anyway, just a funny little moment between Skylar and I. Totally just
eye contact, instantly be like,
yeah. So that's all we have for tonight's episode. We hope that you enjoyed it and got something out of it, dissecting it with us.
If not, it'll probably open communication.
Maybe so. We are thrilled to get any messages that might be sent our way. So please do that. And is there anything else?
That's it.
Oh, I'm kind of sad. It's been so fun.
You can sing a song.
No, that's okay. Okay. So anyway, next week we're excited to do another episode and we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.